Welcome back to the Aussie Shed, ladies and gentlemen, for another episode of Project Fairlady. Today we continue on with the effort to try and get the floor pan straightened out on the old girl. Her undercarriage has been knocked around for 30 years now, folks, and she's certainly showing a few signs of mistreatment. Unlike a couple of... Never mind. I have constantly been working on the floor pan on this thing, folks. There are so many, small dents and lumps and, basically everywhere where the car's been touched, particularly in that fuel pump area from the last video. They basically hammered the boot floor and that whole area kind of flat so they could fit brackets and things like that. And it's just, I'm just not happy with it. I'm not happy with it staying like that. So I'm trying to work my way through and return everything back to factory original, including the shape of the floor pan, so there's not ridiculous hammered bits everywhere and holes everywhere and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, been quite a bit of work in the sort of spare tyre area and around near the fuel tank. I've also done quite a bit of work on the floor pan under the passenger seat. I noticed the passenger seat was sitting on a little slight angle, and I thought, oh, what's going on there? And originally I just sort of put it down to the seat itself. But because I've been going over the floor pan with a fine-tooth comb, I actually noticed that there was a difference between the left and right-hand side, and just very slightly, and that was due to an impact that it had had at some point under the seat area. Now, what that had done, it had pushed the rear outer mount up slightly, which made the seat sort of tilt over this way just a tad. So basically just a lot of measuring and hammering and dolly work and just trying to correct all that sort of stuff. There's actually quite a lot of work that goes into something like this, folks, that never gets filmed. There's a lot of things that are really impossible to film, basically. A lot of things that I start on that I don't think are going to be worth filming but end up being a big ordeal, and I often think, gee, I wish I'd filmed that but haven't. And there's lots of stuff. Can be quite grueling at times, and a lot of the stuff is just monotonous, just really crap work that, people would have no interest in watching, But anyway, folks, enough of me bitching and moaning about it. What I'm going to do now is we're going to attack those frame rails under the front here where it's been smashed in, and we're going to try and get those straightened up. So without further ado, let's get into it. So this is the next big repair that I've got to tackle here, folks. You can see this floor strengthening rail under here. The same on both sides. They've been stoved in by something or other, and it's all sort of scraped quite badly along here. So realistically, the only way to repair this is to cut this section out and then dress all these edges, get the sides back down straight again, and then bend up a new piece of the same or greater gauge steel and slide it right up inside the rail there and just weld it through and sort of tack it right along, and then do the same to the one on the other side. It's actually a little bit worse over that side. Not sure if you can see it there, but it's really pushed in here. No idea how the hell this has happened, folks, but a 30-year-old car, that's the sort of stuff that you come across. So I'll just start setting up, folks, and as I say, get the section cut out, dress it all up. I'll obviously have to take any covers like this off. There's stuff on both sides that'll give me access. I think this is a brake line cover, so that I've got good access to these edges to sort of dress it up on both sides, and then put a new piece in across the bottom. And it will actually be stronger than the original piece that was there. Obviously this is rooted anyway, but it certainly won't be a problem as far as the strength of the vehicle goes. So I guess I better get into it. So after taking a bit of time, folks, and having a real good think about it, I've completely changed the way that I've approached the repair on this this floor strengthening rail. You can see what I've created there is a bit of a straightening rig to help me get this rail straightened up without having to cut the bottom out of it. We'll just move in a little bit closer and I'll show you what I've done. So you can see here, folks, I've cut a little bit of a door in the back of the rail, and I've slid a piece of flat bar up inside the rail there. Just like this bit here, folks. This is a bit of 50 by 8. The piece that's actually up in there is a bit of 50 by 6. And what I've done, folks, is drilled and tapped a hole in the middle of it, so it's got an 8mm thread tapped through the middle, and then I've tapped another 8mm thread on one end, cut the little door, slid it through, and there was already a hole in the chassis rail in this spot here. I just filed it out a tad so I could get the threaded rod through, and I've got some nice heavy flat stuff underneath the chassis rail, front and back. You see this bit here with a bit of flat steel sitting above it so that the force that's transferred onto these ends doesn't compress the chassis as we pull this down. And just using a spanner to do this up and then pull the bar down flat. So when I started, the bar was sitting up on an angle because of the hump that was created in there by the big dent that was in it. So I've just slowly started pulling this down and just working the metal with some hammers and stuff to you know, take out highs and sort of get it back into its shape as it comes down, so it sort of reforms the original shape without too much distortion. And I'm pretty happy with where that is at the moment, folks. So all I've got to do now is just take the rig off, get the bar out, and then just fold this little trap door that I've made back up, and then just tick it back in place, and it should be good to go then. I figure it was just a much less intrusive method to do this repair than sort of cutting the bottom out. I've still got the one to do on the other side. It was a little bit worse than this side. I thought I'd start with the easy one, and I think it's turned out pretty well. So I'll get the rig pulled apart on this side, and then I'll move over to the other side and we'll have a bit of a look at that. So this is the other side, folks. As you can see, it's quite a bit of a mess. It's quite sort of stoved in here in this area and sort of flared out on the sides, flared out on this side. Hopefully I'll be able to do the same thing. Worst comes to worst, as I say, I can always cut this damaged section off the bottom, dolly all the sides up and weld a new piece in. But as I've done on the other side, I'm hoping to just pull all this out with my little rig that I've made up and be able to sort of keep it all and just patch up where I've cut a little bit of a tongue in it to get my steel piece in there. So I guess we'll see. I'll just get these lines off along here. I've already had these off a couple of times mucking around with this stupid bloody battery conversion. So this will all come off real easy, give me access to the side of this, and we'll see how we go, eh? Right, folks, the rig's all set up in position now on this other side. You can see what we've done here, same deal. We've cut a little trapdoor, we've slid the bar in, we've gone through the worst part of the crease, cut another thread into that bar that's gone in the back there to line up with the worst part of the crease, packed it with something nice and solid and flat so we're not going to compress the chassis when we put a whole heap of pressure on this thing. And now we're just going to start cranking on these bolts. This one's really here just to secure the other end, you know. This is the main guy that we're doing all the work with, hence why it's got all the big washers on. And we'll start working the sides with a hammer and dolly where it's all sort of squashed. Other sides, the back side's quite worse than this other side here. It's sort of pushed right out there. So as we start coming down, we'll start hammering that in and see how it sort of shapes up. So might as well hook into it, eh? Folks, I reckon you probably had a bit of trouble with seeing with the light there. I don't have a real great setup with the lights in the Aussie shed here, folks, but as you can see, that is a massive improvement. All it's going to take now is just a little bit of light sort of hammer and dolly work, and we should be able to get that pretty much spot on, I reckon. And we'll just weld it back up, and I assume it'll be an invisible repair once it's finished off. You won't be able to tell that there was ever any damage there to begin with. So yeah, pretty happy how that turned out. Not bad at all. Just pull my little piece out now, and there it is, folks. Alright, we'll finish these off and we'll have another look at them, eh? Couple of coats of epoxy primer in a pressure pack can, folks. Good stuff. Will certainly give us enough time and keep it in good enough condition to hold it all until we paint the whole floor pan of the car, which I don't think will be too far away, but at least for now we know it's all going to sit there really nice. Alright, next, another little job I'm taking care of, folks. This is the Z32 charcoal canister, carbon canister. I noticed that the aftermarket intercoolers, being that they're a little bit larger than the factory intercoolers, were rubbing against this carbon canister on the back of it, and there's very little room between the intercoolers and this, and also the carbon canister in the inner guard. So I was thinking about possibly deleting it, which a lot of people do, but I don't really want to do that. I would really like to maintain that sort of vacuum drawer on the fuel tank and all that sort of thing, just to keep the car legal. So what I've decided to do is to change over to a smaller carbon canister, which fits a lot better in the available space that there is now with, as I say, with the bigger intercoolers. So what I've got here, folks, this is a Nissan S13 carbon canister, charcoal canister. And it's what I'll be fitting. So with the two side by side, you can see the difference between them. The Z32 carbon canister is absolutely massive. It's probably the biggest one I've ever seen. My V36 Skyline doesn't have a carbon canister this big. It's only slightly larger than this one, and it's a bigger engine with a equally a large, if not larger, fuel tank. So I've really no idea what the idea behind this absolutely massive carbon canister is in the Z32. It's a bit bewildering, really. Maybe someone out there can explain why the Z32 has such a massive carbon canister compared to other vehicles. Considering I've seen vehicles with a larger capacity engine and as big a fuel tank, same configuration like saddle tanks and stuff, that use carbon canisters of kind of this size, you know. I'm a little bit bewildered by it. I guess I'm just showing my lack of knowledge, really, but yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this guy because it's just friggin' massive and I don't really see why it needs to be that big, and replacing it with this. There is one less connection on this. There is still the tank and purge connection and everything, but there's just one less purge line, which I'll just delete, so it still will function properly and everything. So what I'm going to try and do, folks, is modify the factory bracket here, which is once again very large, to accommodate this smaller canister. So I don't know how successful it's going to be, but I'll have a crack at it. So what I think I'll do, folks, is I'll just trim off these bottom legs here, possibly cut this in the center, bend it over, rebend these tabs, sort of see what I end up with. Worst comes to worst, I can always make a whole new mount, but I thought I'll see what I can do with the original one, see if I can modify it, shrink it down in size so it doesn't just look like something ridiculous. So I'll have a crack at it, folks, and we'll see what happens, eh? And there we go, folks, that's how it turned out. Refangled to the appropriate size. Yeah, it's not too bad. Goes in like so. Make a bolt in her. We're there. Like that. And there it is, folks, a refangled bracket for the new smaller carbon canister. Let's go and fit it up on the car and see how it looks, eh? Come with me. And there it is mounted up, folks. I think this is going to work out really, really well. It's just going to give me so much clearance now, which it really needed. Yeah, I think it's going to be a great thing. So for now, we'll just pull it out, throw a bit of primer on it and throw it on the shelf, and it can sort of wait until I'm going to do a whole batch of components for under the car, and we'll give it a nice paint job. But once again, just for reference, here's Big Bertha, the old one. Absolutely massive. So yeah, this will be a really good thing. Alright, folks, I think we might leave it there. I'm pretty happy with the progress this week. You know, always lots going on the car. As you can probably tell, I'm working towards getting all the floor pan sorted so that I can start repainting all the floor pan underneath the car. To do that, I have to pull the rear axle assembly out, and also the fuel tank will be coming out, folks. You saw, the previous video with the fuel tank stuff. I've got a bit of a plan for what I'm going to do as far as the fuel delivery system goes. I've got bits and pieces ordered so that I can start sort of building it out. So I can have a few lines in place before I put the tank back up. Once the floor pan's finished painted, I'd like to paint and make sure the tank's 100% as well before it goes back in, which should be good for a bit of a change, folks. I'm sort of starting to get to the point where I am actually going to be putting stuff into the car instead of tearing stuff out of it, because that's basically all we've been doing, is just tearing stuff apart, sorting out problems, which is what you have to do. It's like anything, folks. You've got to start with a good foundation and sort of build up from there. It really would, have been no good to just start whacking paint on this thing. Something that's in as poor a condition as this vehicle is, it really needs to go right back down to the bare essentials, which really means starting at the floor pan, working your way up even further sometimes, folks. At least the car doesn't have to be completely stripped out all at once and put on a rotisserie, which I've done many times with other builds, and believe me, it is an absolute friggin' nightmare. Even just storing all the bits, it's certainly not something that you really want to undertake unless you have the facilities to do it, which I currently do not. So anyway, folks, a bit more progress. Like I say, things should start getting exciting soon. I know the last few weeks have probably been a bit boring to a lot of you folks out there because it's just tear down crap. You know, there's no glory in it. It really is just monotonous crap a lot of the time. For you guys out there that are watching my videos that don't have a lot of experience with cars, you guys are probably the ones who are getting a bit out of it, seeing how things are done and, you know, how you kind of work with tools and all that sort of stuff and different techniques involved in doing things. But there's so much more of that when the car starts actually being built up instead of being torn down, you know. So anyway, folks, as always, thanks for stopping by the Aussie Shed. Bloody pleasure to have you here. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you like the series, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel and all that bloody great stuff. Leave a comment and I'll see yous on the next one. Cheers.